Yo, 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 what's going on? This is the NRW Nerds. Rule the world. It's your boy, Kuya P, aka Patrick Michael Strange, the Adobro, the Babinka boy, the leader of the Holla Holla homies in the Center Gang Gang, and member of the Pogi Boys of the Philippine X Actors Barkada. Shout out to the Pogi Boys. We're back again, another ShoPowSho. And of course, I can't do this without the amazing Ates. And as you know, Kataphorric is over in Japan teaching, giving her all out there in the cold weather right now that is Japan. But I do have fresh from the stuffy spa, Ate, Viva Valentina. What's good, Tina? How are you?
Hey.
You fresh from the stuffy spa?
Yep, always, every day.
Well, we got another hot one. Unfortunately, you weren't able to be part of the last week's convo with the fabulous Filipino brothers and that amazing new film featuring the amazing Basco family. But you're here to help me welcome the first lady of the family.
Yes.
But you did see it, yes, and you enjoyed it, right?
Yeah, it was wonderful. I think I literally like teared up just like the first scene, seeing like the panning shots of the family in that first scene. I was just like, oh, Filipino party. Like,
right? Especially right now when we're in the pandemic and we can't have those moments.
Exactly. So that was great. And then also being the youngest child and black sheep of my family, I'm really excited to speak with Arianna today.
So let's bring her on. Let me go to gallery view. I'm so excited. Y'all know I love the Basco family. It's the family. If I could have been born into one other family, it would have been them. It would have been them. And so let's bring in the first lady, Arianna, Lady Basco. Here we go. She's on the screen. Air horns are going off, Arianna, but you won't hear it right now because I didn't want to deafen you because I love you so much. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hi.
Hey.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm glad you didn't do the air horns. I was a little fact about me. I was born with this condition called macrotia. So I was born with one ear. So if you blew and I have the headpiece in, it'd be a little loud.
Yo,
we don't want to make me deaf yet.
No, don't want to do that. And I was amazed to find that out today. I did not know that about you until doing a little bit more research today in preparation. Amazing. But yeah, but we all have, different things about us, and it's just, it's who we are, and it makes us beautiful. I love it. So we're going to celebrate you and get into your story. I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Tina with our first question out the gate.
And right out the gate, we always want to know, where are you from? But like, where are you really from? And like, where are your parents from?
My parents are from Iba, Zambales, and Pangasinan. And they came to, I think they call us like 1.5 generations because they came younger. And then they met in Pittsburgh, California, which is where the movie is placed at, Pittsburgh, California, without the H. So I am from Pittsburgh, California. Where am I really from? I'm from Basco. My kids, I'm a single mom too. They bear my name. I'm a Basco. I come from the culture of Basco, which is of my parents, but it's of but as my mom would contest to too, who is like the ultimate matriarch of our family, came from my grandma Basco, who showed her how to, in her example. My mom had it rough when she was a kid, who showed her an open house and showed her love and showed her that, because not all Filipinos are generous and gregarious.
We're not.
This is true for our culture. We're not a monolith, but it is also true for our culture. Most people who have Filipinos in their lives and are brought into that culture do experience a lot of food and a lot of the jokes and a lot of the open door policy, and they always have a home place to stay in. But of course, we're not a monolith, and some are more strict. So my mom experienced that when she was a kid, where it was a little bit more closed-minded, and as she came into the Basco family and met my dad and Grandma Basco, she got a different dose of what it means to be not just Filipino, but be family. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm from that. I'm from that.
I love that. So we kick it off with that question because it's something that we all get, when we're out with the, amongst the people, where are you from? So we kind of like to play with it to just show how real and how serious we're going to get with, talking about us and our lives and breaking this monolithic stereotypes that we get, as Filipinos. So thank you for riding with us because, that's a hard question that we all face, and I like to tag along with that question after Tina to also, and you've already kind of alluded to a little bit by celebrating those elders. We wouldn't be here if not for the sacrifice that our relatives did to get us here. So we've had, as Dante and Derek on, and they've shared a little bit. Maybe if you can add some additional love before we get on to your journey, Arianna, maybe something that we don't know or people don't know about the people that pass, an aunt, uncle, grandparent, maybe a story that may not have been told out there that you would be interested in sharing about one of the greater Bascos from down the line.
Yeah. From one of the ancestors. Let's see here. Let me think about this.
No worries.
Because oftentimes when you think back at the stories, you're told a lot about the stories of, the less glamorous stories, but funny. But I will say, I love when my grandmother passed away, my grandma Basco, I made a kind of like a mini doc to pay homage to her. And I went around mostly the whole entire, the greater Basco family, cousins, aunts, uncles, they all participated. And I just asked 3 questions. I asked, who is Dolores Basco to you? Tell me one memory. And then it closed what would you say to her now? And so that was it. 3 simple questions, and I cut it together with, dozens of Boscos and cousins. And I intercut them, and it's a really nice perspective of grandma and what that meant to each of us. And I actually, and everyone was intercut in kind of those categories. So you're watching the film, it's like 25 minutes. It's not a film, but this homage. And I actually held my dad's for the last. So he wasn't intercut in all of it because he spoke more on, and I had him as the last bit, because he spoke on, it's really his memory, so I'm really stealing it from him, but I'm recalling it as my own memory and making the film. That when he was a kid, he heard his mom laugh. He must have been like 5. He was talking about playing somewhere, and he was watching her, and she laughed, and she said that's like, I had never heard that laugh before, and that was the first time that I thought like, oh, my mom is a person. Like, she was a person before I just know her as my mom. And I thought that was just like a beautiful testament to someone's life, because as we go on in life, we get married to these ideas of who these people are in our lives and how they affect our perspective. And of course, as we should. I mean, that's part of self-reflection, how we're perceived in the world, how we're perceived in family, but also having some porous moments where this other part comes in. We're like, oh, but they're in their process too, and they had a whole life before they ever became mom or grandma or grandpa or uncle or aunt, and that they're much more than just what we saw, that we see.
Bars. If this was hip hop, bars, like straight. I love it. Thank you for sharing that, Arianna. That's so beautiful. And I just noticed, so your grandmother's name was Dolores, and when I was on IMDb, your full name, if you don't mind, Arianna Aurora Dolores Basco. So you
yeah,
took that name as well.
I took my grandmother's name, Aurora, and my grandmother's name Dolores.
Wow.
So my mom's mom and my dad and my mom's mom and my father's mom. But Dion was also like that. Dionisio Jose Damaso Bosco.
Okay.
So he has both of the grandpa's names.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I'm always curious because we wouldn't be here if not for them, their sacrifice. So I love to show love and light to them. And now, so born in Pittsburgh, and we know a little bit from about y'all's life from the perspective from Dante and Derek, but I want your unique perspective. You're the youngest, and so you grew up, from what I recall, y'all were in one big old house and you were going back and forth. There's the dancing crew, and then you went from they then got into going to auditions all the time, and then you come along. Tell me how you're born into the family and just this transition. Was that already occurring when you finally came into the picture? This back and forth to LA and Pittsburgh for auditions all the time?
Oh no. Yeah. I was born in 81. So
Okay.
let me age myself. I turned 40 last year. So I was so the breakdancing started in the early 80s. And we moved to LA during in 85. So I was definitely part of that. I was young. So although, I'm from the Bay, but I'm LA raised for sure. And we would go back and forth to visit family. But yes, like running to auditions and all that, like I was all part of that as well. Although my experience of that was obviously just different in its own ways. But yeah, when we came, well, first we were in La Palma, and then we had a short stint in Cerritos, and then we spent a few years in Paramount, California, which is right by Compton. So it was rough. It could be rough. I think I had the roughest journey in those neighborhoods than the brothers. And then we moved to Downey, and then we went to Orange County High School of the Arts. So we were interdistrict transfers, going to this arts school in Orange County. And then I graduated. I moved to New York, and
we'll get there. We'll get
the world a bit.
I want to get that because there's so many interesting parts of this story. If you don't mind, Arianna.
No.
So let me go through one through 10, ages 1 through 10. What, as you said, this is occurring.
Oh, dang! You're breaking it down to numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers.
I want it all. I'm like, I want this story. I want this as the next film. Like, to be part of this. Like, to me, the Basco brothers was like the Jacksons for me. It was my version. As a Filipino, like that was us. Because I was a dancer more so at the time in high school, and had like my own little portrait, high voice man. Wanted to be a dancer and a singer. Like I was singing at the time, but that's the mantle I put y'all up at, and that because I couldn't relate, to everything else. So this was my family to me, and I'm just curious, and I have a little sister, and there's difference how we, Filipino moms treat, the women and then the boys, and I'm sure and Tina knows. Can you tell me, like, that struggle? And I apologize from the boy perspective, how we get treated. I didn't ask for it, but that's what happens. So can you tell me, share a little bit of your experience, Arianna, if you don't mind?
Yeah, a couple things come to mind, and then I'm gonna go 1 to 10. But a couple of things come to mind right away as you were talking, in regards to the women treatment and like kind of my bond and how mothers treat things. I had actually written, and I mean, we're live on this thing, or not live, but you're recording. I've written this thing, actually. We all wrote letters to my mom for her 70th birthday last year. And so, and my letter kind of, and then we read it out loud, of course, because that's how we are. We're all going to read out loud and cry our eyes
Everyone
out.
had to present.
Yeah. But yeah, I have that letter I could pull up, because that speaks to the bond that me and my mom have, which is different. I mean, there's many things to say about the bond between me and my mother, and how that's very different than her relationship with the brothers. And then the other thing that came to mind was so part of, well, I guess this falls into 1 to 10 ages wise. Part of the upbringing as well is that I don't even know if my brothers talked about this or whatever. It's fine. We When we moved down to Los Angeles, my mother, the story is that my dad had made a bad investment with, some compadres, whatever, like some real estate thing, and it didn't work out. And my mother goes, well, I want to be in charge of the next investment for the family. I want to invest in my kids. Like, well, what does that mean? That means she's going to take $100 and she's going to drive down to LA and she's going to get us in the business, right? So already it's like this insanity, but like beautiful insanity. It's 1985, guys. People don't even know what a Filipino is. Ain't nobody watching, like nobody's looking for a Filipino, but my mom's just like naiveness. And also she's not in the business. My father's not in the business. Like they don't even know what they're talking about. Obviously everything that they're watching on television doesn't represent us. Mm-hmm. I don't know what she was thinking. I mean, we were breakdancing, we were doing all these things like as kids. So she obviously thought we were charismatic children. And apparently enough to like crack the industry, the entertainment industry, which is pretty hilarious because of course, people come to this city every day in droves to have a shot at this. But come on, like 5 brown kids in 1985, not even black, like that, just Filipino. Like, what are you doing, lady? Which is great because we have a whole Philam community in the Bay. Like, we're really leaving everything that we know. Anyways, that being said, when she arrived, she didn't have the know-with-all to. I mean, she was a fish out of water. She didn't know how to do anything, but she knew that she needed a good teacher, a good trainer. And at the time, and I'm sure they still publish it now, but we have the internet. There was this thing called the acting class book, and it's very like the Bible of acting classes, like every acting class listing in the city. And she did not have traveling around with 5 kids. Like she doesn't have the time or the money to audit every single class and figure out which one's right for my children. So the story goes, is that my mom's not a particularly religious person, but she prayed to God for someone who would guide her children and really show them the craft, but also be able to guide them in whatever career that she thought we were going to have. So she opened the book and she put her finger down, and that person we ended up studying with for a long time. I was 5, 6 at the time. I was with her till I was 18. And later on was the reason. I mean, we dub it now. We call it the cult because there's a lot of things that we did learn, and it's a beautiful thing. But there were a lot of things that were also not right, and when I left when I was 18, me and my brothers didn't talk for 7 years. They disowned me. So that was a whole. Get into that too. And I know that's later, but to the 1 to 10 part.
Yeah.
Well, this is a little bit out of 10 because so I was coming up in that, but when I was like 13, this incident happened with a pager. I mean, it's pretty silly, but anyways, I decided to leave class, and I left class for a year, and then I realized like, oh, my brothers aren't really coming around. Like I don't really get to see it. Like they're not really talking to me during this period. So I tried to get back into class, and I did. But one of my things to get back into class was I had to meet with one of the quote unquote officers of the class. And he sat me down to a lunch meeting, and like I'm like 13, 14 years old. But he sat me down and he's like, so listen, we're here, the reason why I called you to this meeting today is because your brothers are already gone. They're already the Jackson 5. They're already who they are. But you can't ride on their coattails. and you got to decide. So yeah, so basically he's like, yeah, your brothers are the Jackson 5, and you can't ride on their coattails. They're already who they're gonna be. You got to decide whether you're Janet or Latoya. And these were my options. And I was like, oh. And I mean, reflecting, I mean, I don't think too much about that story, but it just reminds me, as you said, Jackson 5. But how about Arianna? Can I just be Arianna? Lady Basco, Aurora Dolores, whatever. Like, can I just be that? So, but that's the kind of level of language that I was privy to, among other many wonderful things, but many traumatic things during that period that I had to endure, you know. So yeah, so 1 through 10 was kind of 1 through 10 was this transition. Of course, like I'm a child. We come to LA. To me, it's like, oh, we're just doing that. So to me, like the shift is not as huge maybe as it was for the brothers at the time, because I am just like 5, you know, I'm 5, I'm 6. But then I had a stint with a manager too at that time that you know, it's an all too common story, and almost feels like it's a prerequisite to even being a woman, where I was taken advantage of at a young age. So like these uglier sides of Hollywood that it's just like, oh, is that what it takes to not even in Hollywood, just to fucking exist as a woman. That's like a prerequisite of being a woman, you know. So yeah, so that happened. There's like there were some interesting things that I was already noticing though as a child, where I was like, this isn't right. Like integrity things, where I already felt this pull of like, this doesn't sit right, this doesn't feel right, and trying to in my own ways like quit that structure from the go. But because again it's a patriarchal society, and because the brothers are into it, and because it's just feeling like you couldn't get out, and there were a lot of benefits to it too, and feeling unseen at the time too, because even when we left that agent manager, it was under the guise of Dante had already booked Hook, so it was under the guise of you know, all of us kids can't be at the same agency. That's a conflict of interest. But it was not like, no, we're going to advocate for what happened to Arianna, and that's not right. So we can't be here, you know. And seeing that too as a young age, and seeing that as although we are a strong family, I'm not talking shit about my family. I love my family. Everything of me is my family. But these lessons of submissiveness when things could have been said or brought up or advocated for, you know, and that they weren't, and seeing that side of what wanting something so badly can do, the sacrifices that we make of other things, you know.
Well, it's interesting because like you had mentioned that it was like kind of cult like, and it almost seems like there's like a grooming element to it, where it's like you're born into this family and this is what y'all do, y'all perform. So there's like this pressure to then perform, and then to play the politics that also come along with it. And
well, I would say to that is that I wouldn't say that it was so much my family thing than it was the actual organization that we were dealing with, because really that was the dichotomy of that, was like, here we have like my mom and my pops, like this always open door and raising their kids with values and compassion, and then here you have this like very disciplined thing that is teaching us about discipline and ethics and art. So there are these beautiful things, but we're picking up things there that don't always cross over, you know, with how we were raised, and all in the name of like, oh well, this is how you do things. But it's like, but is that how we do things? And that was me, like as a young kid, like, is that really what we stand by? Are these the values that were really that we were taught, that we stand? But oh, those are the values that we have to adopt because we're taking this seriously now, because this is like what we're doing, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like less about my mom and dad co-signing it. I mean, of course they're going to support their kids because they don't entirely know what's going on in class. They're just like, I'm gonna drop you off at dance class. Have a good
Yeah.
time in dance class, you know? So they don't really know all of those, what's happening there. And the power that was in that, because we're also children, so like so impressionable.
Mhm.
But again, like in its own ways, no regrets, because it definitely made us the introspective in our own ways artists that we are. And I mean, 100% made me into the person, like not just an artist, but this artist that supports and provides platform and space, and the way in which I do that, and the way um of not wanting anyone to feel like they don't belong, like this, building
Yeah.
a platform and a space for art to be nurtured and for humanity to be nurtured, um in this way that's not like stay, but just like it's about alignment, and it's all good, and it's all good if you don't come, it's all good, you know. It really set the stage for what I'm doing these days, in addition to all the other things that I'm doing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I just want to say before I ask my next question, and I just want to state to you, Arianna, I felt after I said what I said and you kind of gave your feedback, I felt that I might have said something triggering, and I know I triggered myself, and so I just want to apologize in that regard, because I also brought up the Jacksons in the way like I said, I envisioned you guys, and thinking about it now, and I just could only, in hearing you state what you were saying in your words, like, and what was occurring, like it would have been soul crushing in a way, I guess. And, you know, and so my question would be like, you're born into this family and you feel they're doing this, and like you would have to keep up. Do I have to keep up with them? You know, if you're like as the youngest, cause you know, do it. And I would think that you probably like maybe had a love-hate relationship, well, with the craft, and then to experience what you experienced, that would, you know, make you get disgusted with it. But then I love that you said at the end though there that you kind of internalize that and you've built from that, right? And turned it into a positive. But I just want to apologize if I said anything that might have been triggering or offended you, and put you back into that space.
Go 100%. You have not triggered me. I do my own work in my own life. Like there's nothing that you can say to trigger me at this point. You know, and not to say that I don't feel these things and they don't go through me, but no, absolutely not. Don't apologize. There's no disclaimers here. You're good. And in terms of like it is being tough. Some people, you know, throughout the years, friends or associates and acquaintances, people, you know, that we fucks with. Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, it's all good. I'm former military, so it'll slip
I'm just
sometimes.
making sure. I'm just making sure. I mean, I thought I'm going to be like, but people that we, you know, that we work with and whatnot, will sometimes make the mistake in saying like, oh yeah, but of course, because you're a Basco. Oh, of course, these things are happening for you because you're a boss. Of course, you can hold space, or you're hosting, or you killed that poem or that song or that whatever because you're a Basco. It's like, or did this movie because you're a Basco. And although there is plenty of power and there is this synchronicity in the family, and there is a beauty and a force that comes when people gather, and especially if you share the last name and you have as many shared experiences as we do from different perspectives, but shared experiences as we do, and are able to find some common ground to actually get something off the ground and make it something like the Fabulous Filipino Brothers, or anything like that, is a feat of its own. And it is something to marvel at, because it is pretty amazing. But make no mistake, it is not easy to be in this family. And not because the bar is set so high. I mean, maybe in part, but it's just in it, but not just the Bosco family, just in the inner workings of any big family. This ain't even about an industry entertainment thing, because that's its own beast that we can talk about, like trying to get a seat at the table, and then trying to get a seat at the table at your own table as a woman in the family. Those are different things. But just being in a large family, when you're really present, you really understand, if you're from a large family and understand the nuances of that, when the titas and lolos and everybody's in the house and you're trying to tell a story, and There's times when you get frustrated because you were silenced. There's times that you got to speak louder. There's sometimes you got to speak lower because you got to respect your elders. There's times like all of these dynamics, you're learning how to live at an intersection, and you're learning how to carve out your voice. And for some, and it's hard in any large family situation because it's hard to survive that. And I'm not saying it's bad for your health. I think it's the most amazing thing for your health. I mean, I love growing up in a large family and having those challenges, but it sucks at times because sometimes you feel like you haven't been seen, but that's going to propel you to find your people. And that doesn't mean that your people that you share a name with ain't your people. That means that you're going to find some other like-minded, like-hearted people to hone your voice. And then when you come back to the table, you're like, no, boundaries. This is how I'm treated now. Like, this is my voice now. I went and found some people that like actually hear me and respect me and love me. You know what I mean? And doesn't mean that you vilify your family. I mean, some people do, but in my way, I don't ever want to vilify my family. My family is all of me, is everything of me. It is my source. It is like the center for me. Especially as I come and I'm now making my own children and raising my own children. You know, it's everything. But being able to find that balance and being able to find those places where like, oh, I'm seeing, okay, and be able to bring that to the greater conversation.
Yes. Thank you, Arianna. And again, I want your voice, and I want to hear your voice, and I want your story. And so I thank you for sharing these difficult aspects of it as well. So 1 through 10, when we go, as I get into like the high school years, college, school years, I want to throw it back to like the Filipino element that we have as part of these conversations, where we find out we're Filipino. We're all born human beings, but society, America puts labels on us, and you're this, you're that. When did you first discover? Was it automatically? I think obviously you're the first Filipino of entertainment family, but when did you realize you're a Filipino? Like, and the people around you, you're in a very multicultural area, I would assume, of LA and just that area. But like, when was it for you that you found out that you were different than other people and your family is different and you eat different foods? Can you tell me about the realization of coming to that as a young Arianna?
All right. So the discovery of being Filipino, first of all, my mom is like, she's been living at the intersection. She's been teaching just in the way that she is. We didn't grow up like, oh, this is what Filipino is. This is what you have to do to be Filipino. It was just, that's why I say, like, I just grew up in the culture of Basco. And in the Bay, in Pittsburgh, our whole town, my ninong was the mayor of the town. Like the fireman was, the Santa Claus was Filipino. So to us, it was just, or to me, I can only speak to me, but like, it was just family, it was just reality. And then when we moved down here, mostly cool. Fourth grade, elementary ends at fifth. In fourth grade, fifth grade, I ran for class president, and the fourth grade Dante books hook. So cool, living in the neighborhood in Paramount. Fifth grade, I run for president, the school president. I make presidency, and then we hit sixth grade, which then I moved to, are now in middle school. Now middle school, I think that this might be my first real awakenings to race. Not that I wasn't aware of race before. Of course I was aware of race, but the toll that it takes in society and what that looks like, and really, I mean, because also the LA riots also happened when I was in elementary school. So like, I am understanding that, and already we live at an intersection. Our house is an open house. We've never lived alone, just my parents, my 4 brothers, and me. There has always been extended family and friends living, and not like staying with us for a couple nights, like full on living with us. At one point there was like 24 people living. I mean, we wrote it into the script, but that's true. There was like, I think we even lessened it to 21 because 24 sounds crazy. I don't know. why. But like, I think when I counted it, I was like, no, I think there was like 24 people living with us, all of us in under one roof in a one bathroom house, like literally. So I was used to all that. But then when I got to middle school, it was a different thing, because that was like, well, one, where I was, and again, I just came from being president, and like, I always got good grades, but like, I, I got, whatever populars, I was doing fine. I was in elementary school, but coming to middle school, you're the underdog. You're in sixth grade. It's a rough school. It's Clearwater, which isn't there. It's called something else now, but it's a rough school. One, my brother just did a movie, so people look at me like, oh, this B thinks she's this, which I didn't, but I don't, I didn't know how to act. I mean, I'm just like there. And two, I have one ear, which is weird. Like, well, you have one ear. Like, it's just, kids are cruel, And then three, I'm not Black, and I'm not Latino, and I'm not, the other Asian that's nothing wrong with that either, but like just sticking to their books. Like, I'm not that. I'm me. I was just president of my school, you know what I mean? And I'm a performer, and so it was, and for all my own self-worth and beauty things, I look the way that I do, which is not like beautiful, but I'm not like not attractive, you know what I mean? And then I have one ear. So there was like a lot of things, that girl thinks she's whatever, whatever it is, which I don't even think that I am. But so going through, I can remember like going through the halls of that school is just so difficult. It was so difficult to navigate. And that's when I started to like very quickly code switch. I mean, not just code switch, it became part of my culture. Just like, you had to make a choice. That year was so difficult that like just being punked, and then I got in a fight. Like, it was just really, really difficult. And my brother's not really taking me seriously, but I'm like, but seriously, like, there's these girls, and it was hard. And then the next year, it was so difficult that I had to go to school on the other side of town. And I did that before Thanksgiving, which was also like, it was actually, there was a girl there I remember that went to elementary school with me, but we weren't really friends, and she had kind of became something else. But I was cool. I was just like surviving. I mean, I really think of those times as just like surviving. And then when we moved to Downey, which is just the city over, and I went to West, that's when like I swore like I'm never gonna get punked ever again. And then that's when that's when the shift happened in culture. And it wasn't even just like, because there wasn't like a lot of Filipinos there. It was a different thing. My brothers love to make fun of me because I started my own crew, and they say, oh, she started her own gang. It wasn't a gang. I never started a gang. There wasn't a gang.
Yeah.
But I had definitely made the conscious decision of like, never again. Never again. So I had to be the baddest bitch out there. And that is to say that I was not like doing drugs and doing all of these things. There's something culturally for me, or like a obligation for my parents to not lose myself, which also repeated itself when me and the brothers weren't talking, and I actually went to New York, and that was like my perfect excuse to just like lose myself, and no one's gonna shame me for my parents picking me up out of the gutter. But I couldn't, because I was like, I just had too much loyalty and love for my parents and for my family to like do that. So I was never like doing that, but I was definitely testing boundaries. I mean, there was like, it was hard. I went to 4 middle schools, and there was 3 middle schools. So by the end of the 7th grade year, the school itself was like, she's not expelled, but she's also not welcome back. So she's not officially like expelled, because I was like, we didn't get the welcome back next school year letters. And they're like, oh yeah, we didn't send that to her because she's not welcome back. Which was cool because then I started to go to the brothers at the time had just gotten to Orange County High School of the Arts. So I ended up going to the academic middle school that's in that district so that I could just like, when I got to high school, I could swing by in there, which was its own thing, you know. I mean, yeah, those years were. I always thought I had it together, but I get it. My mom totally changed my trajectory. There was this one night, there was some drinking, and a friend of mine had to go to the hospital, and they were going to throw me into juvie. It was a whole thing, and but then they said your mom doesn't come, you're going to juvie, and my mom from that day on grounded me. And I was a little like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm not even gonna talk to you about this. Like, but whatever.
Yeah.
And we didn't ever talk about it. But like, one day became one weekend, became 2 weeks, became a month, became 2 months, became 3 months. And I was like, what? She's just gonna lock me up in here? And at the time, I'm going to a new school in 8th grade. I'm like, is she serious? She would be like the first one to, you know, she'd like drop me off right before the school bell rang. So I didn't get to talk to anyone. And she'd be the first one to pick me up when I wasn't driving. I was like, is she serious? So, you know, we had the phones, we didn't have cell phones, and I would try to like sneak the phone. She's like, nope, she had that on lock. She was serious. I was grounded for 9 months, guys. 9 months.
Wow.
She was serious.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a talk. Like one day she did walk me in and she gave me this book that said like, do you know how much I love you? And it was just like this small little coffee table book. But we didn't talk about it. She just like did her thing slowly. And my mom's a very gregarious person. And then one day one of my homies came to the door and I looked at her like, can I go outside? And she's like, go ahead. And I caught up with him. But from that point, like that 8-9 months of punishment it did definitely like change my trajectory of where I was going, you know.
Yeah.
Different time.
That's like she was giving birth to
Oh yeah, she wasn't playing. She's like, oh no, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
like hard stop. Geez, yeah, wow.
Because I mean, and I shouldn't, you know, I don't want to like oversell it because I wasn't like horrible, but I definitely was like, I definitely got a restraining order against me, but from somebody. I couldn't be on a street till I was 18, you know. So like I definitely tested some limits, but I wasn't like out there, you know. I didn't like no guns. Like I don't want to say like people out there.
Yeah.
I had values. I was just trying to survive in these streets, man. I was being the best version of myself, of this kind of person, you know.
Gosh. And then your mom just strong armed you back in the right direction.
And she was like, nope. Yeah. She was like, nope.
So dial me back real quick, because we started, because maybe I'm a little slow because I am older now. I'm like 4 years older, I think, than you, Arianna, because I'm 77. Dial me back. So, because we were on like finding ourselves, we were Filipino, and then because like when we've had like other guests on, like, you know, some of us, you know, embrace our culture, some of us pull back, and I like to bring up, because what I actually bring up the example of Dante in the debut when he brings his white friends over, and then, you know, they see the spoon and fork, you know, up on the wall, they see the barrel man, and then they smell the patisse in the air, and, you know, he's what's the word I'm missing, Tina? Or, you know, that he's embarrassed for himself and his culture, you know, to have these white friends over up in his house. So like that's kind of like the example I use. That were you embarrassed, or did you embrace your who you were? Because sometimes, you know, there's where I was at. I grew up in the South, and I grew up all over. I was part of a military family, but like, you know, I'm losing track of what I'm trying to say, but like, you're just embarrassed of who you are. You're not comfortable.
No, I feel you. I hear what you're saying.
So
yeah, I answered your question on this broader sense, but more specifically,
did. I'm sorry.
Like, yeah, no worries. More specifically to that question, I've never been embarrassed to be Filipino or who I am, but I definitely, within the story, was what I was trying to say was like, I became I was accepted into the Latino culture. At that time. So because there wasn't, because I didn't really know, It's not that I didn't know what Filipino was. I am Filipino. I'm just Filipino. Like that. I grew up being Filipino. I'm just Filipino. There's no need to like shout it on the rooftops.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to survive in the streets. And then
Gotcha.
I well, not just like and the black culture, definitely the black culture too. So I
Gotcha.
definitely like grew up in the neighborhoods, and then I ended up going to a very, very white school, which was a whole other thing. So then I was just looked at as like not even Filipino, just like I was kind of hoodie. But then I did this art, and my brothers had done this movie, so like also
Okay.
still couldn't like figure out what I was. But in terms of really, I've never been ashamed of my culture or embarrassed by my culture.
Yeah.
But I will say, well, like there's times within the culture, like whereas like just recently actually, like my mom sometimes she has this tendency. I love my mom, but like because of her own generational trauma and colonialism, like recently I
Yeah.
had this film production crew at my house. They're doing a documentary and they're cleaning up, and they just interviewed me like all day and all this, and then my mom's sitting there and she's talking because it's actually for this really amazing chef. So I was talking about her, and anyways, we had been to a restaurant, and so the film crew's talking to my mom. She's like, oh, it's just so nice, and we could never afford to do that, like if she didn't. And I'm like, dial back. Like, why do you talk about yourself like that? And like, not to say that we're rich, because we're not super rich. You walk around my house, we don't live in a mansion. Yeah, we're the Basco family, we're royalty, or whatever people like to say, because I don't even know what that means. Because we still are struggling in these streets. Like we're still no. And even if we did have a mansion, we'd still be who we are, right? But like that's not our lives. But also it's not we shouldn't have to treat ourselves, have this own narrative about ourselves as second and third class citizens. So that's times when I've been embarrassed in the culture, in the manifestation of our culture with my mother. I'm like, no, ma, like, can you own your shit? Can you be the matriarch of the family? You're the one who brought us here. You're the one who did all these things. You don't have to continue that narrative. You don't have to keep talking like that. Another incident, or not incident, but like era of my life of my culture and embracing it is when so I've been holding space for a long time, and I know I'm not following your formula of going by the years,
No,
so
I
excuse
love it.
me. But to answer your question, so I've been holding space for a long time, and one of the spaces, well, when I came back from New York, I very much consciously, like I did in seventh grade, was like, I'm never gonna get punked again. Was like, I'm never gonna, well, not never, but like I'm gonna basically create space where people feel like they belong, because I just came out of that traumatic situation. So I started Tarred and Feathered was the first rendition of things in 2006, and that was like, that was an intersection before intersection was like, intersectionality was like a idea in our culture. But like from, I would have like a punk band to a singer songwriter to a, I don't know, to a rap group all on one stage, and then I had spoken word poets in between, and then I'd have live painting going on like for like a month-long project. So every month we'd pound out another piece, and at that time I wasn't even hosting, I was just like producing and providing. And then at one point, we were, to make things even further, we ended up at a gay bar in the valley. So then I was asking all these bands to play and all these people to play at this gay bar in the valley on a Sunday afternoon, and my dad's making hot dogs in the back, like this like total like inclusive intersection vibe. And then I had this up, then I ended up doing Speakeasy, which is at the Last Bookstore in downtown LA. It's been there forever. It's a very reputable bookstore. And that space, it was free to get in, but it's right by Skid Row. So you had everything from like the veteran poet or artist to the veteran to the homeless guy who gave up his bed tonight to be on this mic, and packing that place up and be living at that intersection, right? Of like all these different cultures and people, and finding some some space, and then doing work. But then when it really shifted, going back to your question of intentionally embracing my culture, because here I am, I'm just rocking because I am a human being, and I've been, I mean, I want to have better words than cuss words, but I've been disregarded so many times in my life for having one ear, for being the only girl, just being ignored, for, not being seen in moments of violation, cultural forgottenness. Like, okay, well, I'm just going to be about it and like create space. That when my brother ended up, he teamed up with AJ and did We Own the Eighth, and then I became heavily involved in that, and at one point became acting, creative director of that. That was meeting once a month, and did he tell you about We Own the Eighth? Are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
It was a monthly celebrating Asian Americans, dropping things on the 8th for Asian Americans, and there was talk of like, well, we need to create something where people can engage more during the week, during the month.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm already doing speakeasy. I already have this history over like holding space all my life, really. But then, more intentionally in the mid 2000s to then, I said, well, then I might.
It was like
that's
04, I think, because I think I met him at that time. That's when I first met Dante. I think it was like
in 04?
2004, 2005?
Yes, but We Own the Eighth didn't start till 2007?
Actually,
no, 14.
Oh, damn. Okay, maybe I'm getting my time.
But he was doing no. You're talking about DPL, which is a different thing.
Oh,
the Poetry Lounge.
Yeah.
The Poetry Lounge actually started in the mid 90s out of our living room, and then it became, which is also like one of these intersectional spaces, right? But then Dante really going, okay, well, I want to create this space for Asian American voices. We Own the Eighth. How do we get them to kind of communicate more during the month, throughout the month? I said, let's do the mic. And then me and my partner at the time, my homie at the time, we started Our Mic. And Our Mic was the first time that, in terms of embracing culture, was because it was primarily Asian folks. I mean, there was other people of color and white people there too, but primarily Asian folks. How I approach artists, and I work with artists as a director, as a consultant, as a curator. I just talk to them. We're just gonna work these things out. I realized when I started doing Our Mic, oh damn, like it really, really dawned on me that these folks, that these Asian faces have always mostly been in performative spaces. If you're a rapper, singer, songwriter, or an actor, the only Asian kid in the room. I was just like living that. So like I didn't really compute, but then I started really like they've never actually been looked at and talked to as like a human being, like decency of just like an artist. Like, oh, you an artist, you doing your thing, without it being attached to, oh, but you're the Asian guy, so oh yeah, you're trying to do rap. Oh yeah, you're trying to be an actor, but you're never gonna get the Brad Pitt role or the Tom Hanks role or the whoever role. You're never gonna get that. So they've always been attached to that and always have been carrying that around with them. But then to be able to work with them in this space, in this environment, and I know it's an open mic, but all of my spaces are not they're not open mics. That's why I almost hate calling them open mics, because we don't just do open mics. It's like the mic is open, but we have this thing. Then it was called Round 2. Now it's called B-Sides or Lady B-Sides, where we go back into the work. I mean, it's really more an exploration of art and humanity through the work that's brought that night, and finding different ways for people to play. And it's a shared experience. It's a place to train up and see each other at this intersection. So that, I would say, to answer, like, these are the moments that I've like really had like, oh, I need to embrace my culture, or in my mom's case, like, oh, I need to like dismantle that part of the culture, and like call that out. And then definitely just like all my involvement thereafter, Our Mic ending with We Own the Eighth ending, but then opening Palms Up Academy in Hi-Fi in historic Filipino town with SIPA, pairing up with Search to Involve Filipino Americans now. And then they're going through renovations in Hi-Fi. So then we found another home coming out of COVID, in the interim at Los Angeles College Prep Academy, which is primarily Latino based. It's a very small charter school, but their whole curriculum is on decolonization and interrogating the systems. I mean, they just did away with the school bell. They're like, yo, you know what time to be in class?
Yeah.
Then be there. That's on you, which I think is so smart and innovative and new. I mean, that's how I raise my kids. Like, I'm not gonna smack you every time you do something wrong. Think about what you're doing. What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of character you want to be in your life? You know, who do you want to be? And that's what they're doing. That's the kind of work that they're doing. So it's like kind of this perfect marriage that a lot of our programs are on their campus right now.
Yeah.
Because we both stand for this same, like, it's all in you.
Yeah.
You can't blame the school bell anymore. You can't come in with a bad attitude because you know your teacher's already going to look at you because you're walking in like 1 second late and that's already a thing. No, that's on you. Get there when you're supposed to get there. You know what time it is. Get it, you know? So putting the people want the power, so let's really give the power back to the people. And what do you do with that? Let's stop blaming everybody. And what do you really do with that when you do have the power? And there is no excuse. And there is nothing extraneous giving you trauma like a school bell or like the chip on your shoulder, you know? Like, so then now what? Who are you? Who are you really?
Those, man, bars. Thank you for that, Arianna. I love all of this, and I love how this journey, you know, we're going on. We're going back and forth, and I know you recognize that we were going outside of it, but I love it. And so to just bring it back to, and so people can understand how you got to that point, you know, there's those scars that we receive to get to that. And I hate to, you know, bring it to those points, but I think it's important that it's a journey to get to this amazing mountaintop that you're at now and where you're at in giving back to the people and to the community. So, and as you already illustrated, now going into the school years is, I think, where we were at in my like timeline. And you kind of explained you were in and out here and there, had some issues. Was there a particular subject? Did you, even though you were having like and coming to yourself and you had this gang stuff going on, or not a gang though, you weren't in a gang. But like, do you know what you wanted? What did Aria want out of life at that moment in time? Like, and one of our big questions that we always ask with a lot of people, because of, you know, how like the Filipino community puts onto us, you know, graduate and you go to college and you become an architect, an engineer, a doctor. We can be in the arts, but that's not, you know, an activity that they don't all follow. Different for you, I know, because your family was in the arts. So what was that like? Did you feel compelled to go to the arts because of the family was the arts and you're a Basco? Or did you want something for yourself that you're carving out? Or do you just, because all of this was crashing at one time, I would assume, and that made you, you know, with what you were explaining to us earlier, where, you know, you got out of school and you dropped out. Where was can you put me into that mindset of what your thoughts were and then getting into then the point where I think you said at 18, you went to New York to really find yourself and say, fuck it all, I'm gonna do me. And I'm gonna find my own self, and you know, can you take me on that journey if you don't mind?
I think everything is everything, so it's hard to not jump decades with it. I think being born at all into the body that I was born into the structure of siblingness that I, you know, the fifth of those guys, and being Filipino, I mean, I think everything is everything. So I think, and having 1 year in that, and seeing the world differently, and inherently just inherently being empathetic because I have this, you know, because this, you can't. So, and feeling excluded all the time. Inherently, I think, you know, when I discovered that letters and words are really just curved lines. When you're drawing a line and it's just curved, and then you make these communications, and then you can sing those communications. And then, you know, with having 1 year is always a bit traumatic for me with singing. because when you hear a mono, if you move your head slightly, you actually hear a different key. Like you could hear it just registers different. So having to sing over and over and over again to get it right, to make sure that like you're on key, you sound all right, you know. But then beyond that, like just like the expression of art has always, that's just, I've always I've always done art. And that's not just because of the family that I was born into, because I've always like found, you know, even if you're learning things in school, it's always gonna be relating to me in some way, like art, or how do I manifest that into a show, or manifest that into a drawing or a song or a poem or something. Like that's just what my brain lends itself to. That's just what my soul wants to do, is to ultimately like, recently I was asked, like, oh, how is it to be like a multi hyphenate? It's like, not a, I don't know. How do it's, I don't know. I'm too busy doing all the things. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't mean anything. And I'm not so much a multi hyphenate than I am a storyteller. And if that storytelling manifests itself in a poem or a song or a whole script or a play or making children, or, you know, checking them on some disciplines, like these are all stories. These are all just ways of storytelling, and ultimately ways of communicating, which is a problem that the world has right now. Communication. And again, with this 1 year thing, always having to listen, not even just not, I'm not even trying to challenge myself. This is not like I'm trying to challenge myself, so I'm trying to listen harder. I have to, out of necessity, I have to listen harder. And then that exploration of listening harder, of just being quiet and really listening, then starts leading one to hearing things that aren't even being said, picking up on the nuances of things and the nuances of the room, and being able to navigate a room, and being able to pick up on dynamics, not in judgment but in observation of different things that are going on. So yeah, storytelling and communicating. So I don't think that this was something that was like sold to me as anything. There were elements of that, like in class, and like what I should have been, because I did. And you kind of asked about it earlier, like, well, this is your question, like, did I feel the pressure of the family? I mean, yes and no in ways, because yeah, I'm sure in some variation of any one of my brothers or my parents' minds, in their own perspective of what could have been me, could have been, you know, a series regular and the cute girl on some 90s show or early 2000s show, or I don't know. I guess that could have been me. I guess you know, I'm the same age as Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. I guess I could have gone that route, but I didn't. And it wasn't for lack of passion of who I am. I didn't. I wasn't ever into, I mean, I had an agent, I have an agent, I don't have that's not, I think I've been on just like a different journey of truth and understanding myself and my own place in the world, and my own place in my family, my own place in the world. I mean, and then since then, and it's not like I never stopped creating. Like I went to New York, and I know we're not there yet, but I created a one-woman show, and then I'm just not. I know we're not there yet, but then going on to being a single mom of two. That is not something that I planned. I did not plan to be with two people that were not going to, like, you know, show up in their own ways. And I've just been on a different journey in terms of art. And it's not to say that I don't want to do those things, and that I haven't been part of those things, and I haven't been here all along doing those things. I mean, in fact, you know, Dante came out with Zuko, Rufio to Zuko, which is wonderful. But I published a book in 2013, you know, and then without planning it, before I even knew about the Fabulous Filipino Brothers, that year I actually directed my directorial debut, Glimmer, you know. So it's like I am doing things. I've just always just been doing them in my way.
Yeah.
And, you know, for all that thing, like that I was talking about before, like, oh, but of course it's happening because you're a Basco. It's like, Yeah, no. I mean, because there's been a lot of times that like my shit's been unsung and I don't need anyone to sing it. I'm singing it. You know what I mean? Or the people that do know about it know about it. And it's not to say like, of course I would love a bigger platform, more visibility, and that comes when it comes. But meanwhile, that's not even why I'm doing it. I'm telling this story about Glimmer because I'm telling this I'm I want to do this lens justice, this non-binary transgender lens that was, that's a whole other story. Or I'm telling this Heartstorms, this play that like for this reason. Um, and we sell out theaters or we sell out, a play theater, a theater room. But yeah, is it like on a billboard? No. But guess what? Fabulous Filipino Brothers ain't either. Because guess what? We're all still fighting for our seat at the table. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is amazing, but that's what we're doing. Like, and everyone's got to do their work to meet those opportunities that we're making up, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not even like we're just making up opportunities. And like, if we can all just align for one, yeah, let's do that. While we've all been doing all of these other things with our lives and creating fulfilling moments. And because at the end of the day, hustle, 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 Kuya P, you got to rest. And you know what? When you wake up in the morning, no matter how much you hustle, it's like, my thing is like, when I wake up in the morning, when I look at myself in the mirror, do I know my name? Mm-hmm. Like, do I know my name? Can I say my name out loud? And do I know what that name stands for? And not just Basco, my full name and everything that is. And when I go to bed at night, do I know who my people are? And I'm straight. And I'm straight. And I can take a break and I can take a rest and I can hustle, hustle, hustle,
Yo, I gotta take a moment because I'm about to cry this is real fucking talk right now. I'm gonna stop it for a second because I need to take a breath. But I just want to say, because earlier when I was prepping for this, I was listening to you do your you play guitar, you do spoken word. I'm a spoken word cat too, which is crazy how similar you and I both are. And the line that came to me as I was listening to you and writing in my head, because when you feel other people, you get creative. I don't know about you. When I listen to other people, I get creative as well. And the line that came to my head was, I know who I am. And with what you just said there about looking yourself in the mirror and knowing who you are just really fucking hit me. So I just want to thank you for that. And I love you for that. And I just need to pull back for a second because I am crying and shit now. But yeah, sorry, Arianna. Sorry, everybody that's watching this. But this is real shit that we do, and this is why we do ShoPowSho. This is kind of like therapy for us as well, because that's why we want to do this. We're not a monolith. We've all lived through different things, and we're all trying to find ourselves. And I'm really appreciate you sharing your story right now, Arianna, to share this journey. This is just real talk, and this is realness right now. And I love you for that. So my apologies, but I love you, and I need to finish that. I need to write this down on paper later. This new spoken that I got, because I know who I am. All right, I'm sorry.
No apologies. No apologies. Please, no apologies. Are you sure you don't need a pen right now? You need to just jot down the main ideas of it. Because I hate when I have an idea and I'm like, what?
Nah.
What?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
I lost it.
I know. Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
No, but being with me is also taking a pen and jotting down the idea.
Yeah. I actually typed, I know who I am. I am the son of Sam.
Okay.
I'm the, yeah, I did a little bit right before. It was literally, like 20 minutes before we started.
Good.
No, thank you. I'm sorry.
Good. Yeah.
Weird transition. Yeah. My apologies.
I know. No, there's no change.
Yeah.
No sorries.
Yeah.
No sorries.
Yeah, we were in school and going to New York. What was the catalyst to go to New York, and then developing the women's shows, and then taking us back to Cali and everything?
The catalyst to going to New York. So there's always like in we talk about this in acting, all right? So when you're playing a scene, like you have behaviors. So whether you're like washing dishes or you're doing laundry or whatever, you're doing something in the scene, because two people really having a conversation are always doing something. You're like rarely just, I mean, you're sitting there, you're having coffee, you're doing something, that's real. We have this other thing in acting, there's like always the apparent event and the actual event. So apparently it looks like I'm like upset with you about, not doing the laundry correctly, but the actual event is that I'm pissed about some other shit, right? So the apparent event of me moving to New York City, which is valid in its own way, is that I was in a relationship and he was from New York, and he had his family out there, and he was living in LA, and I'd never been to New York, and I wanted to experience that. But the actual event of me moving to New York was that I was suffocating in Los Angeles. I could not. I know who I am, and as much I know who I am, but now I've created a world where I'm part, or I've just, or not even in. I guess when we go back to that question about pressure, this is where I started feeling pressure, because it's like every corner I turned, everybody that I'd run into was part of this greater my family, but also these lines are skewed because they're also my art family, but my art family, because we're Filipino and we're so generous, like, is my family. And everyone's like, oh, what's up with your brothers? How are your brothers? And also, and I'm not, it's not lost on me that of course I have real friends, but it's not lost on me that a lot of people in my life, even now, want to talk to me or be close to me because of my brothers. And in other instances, specifically Dante. Like, that's not lost on me. And I don't judge anybody for that. I get that. Like, that makes sense. I understand that. But that environment for me in Los Angeles was just so suffocating. I didn't know what to do. And also I'm like trying to be an adult myself. I'm learning that's just such a hard time. I would never want to relive those years again. I don't regret any of mine, but that's such a hard time to go from, all right, you're at the house and like you're taken care of, to like, oh no, now you need to, well, if you ain't going to go to college and you're going to do this thing, like, figure out how do people make money? How is that really going down? Like, how is everyone doing this thing? So moving to New York really was about suffocation and having to get out and find who Arianna is without even being a Basco, without just who I am. I had this realization in New York at one point, like, that I could meet somebody, and also because New York is just like so heavily populated and such a busybody city, where, like, I could meet somebody at a bar and they could be like, who are you? And I could be like, I'm Shelly. Where are you from? Kansas. And no one would question that, and what that felt like, and what that, like, this anonymity about it. And it's not like I was like famous. I'm not even famous now, but just known the community and just known so well when this really horrendous thing had happened between our family, and it's just the deck was really stacked against me to even talk. It was just so taboo to talk about because of the structure of what the cult was. Like, everything was third party, and everything was just like everything. I mean, I was a criminal. I was a criminal in that space. So there was nothing that I had just had to get out. So finding myself in New York, and I moved in 2000, and I was 19. I was 19 and 2000. One of the things I did in New York was, like, when I got there, I hit the ground running, man. In terms of being an adult, I swear, I was like, I'm not going to ask my mom and dad for any money. And because with the disownment of me, they also disowned them. They also disowned my parents. So that was really, really difficult. So I could not go out there and shame my parents. Like, I didn't even know what to do. So I got, like, all the jobs. I was working Monday through Friday as a showroom manager for a fashion designer. I'm not into fashion like that, but that's just the job that I got. And then I was also working at a restaurant at night, and then I was babysitting these kids on the weekends and my off times. So I was just like, I don't know what this money thing is, like, how to do it. I mean, of course I'm aware of it, but my parents weren't like super financial savvy, and So I was like, I just need to figure it out and not bother my parents about it. That's what I need to do right now. And that even had like that, I was like just doing that and just figuring out adulting in New York City and having culture shocks, because that's even a huger intersection where like I'm used to seeing, Black folk and just like with the hip hop gear and just know the vernacular and how they talk. Cause I grew up in LA. But these guys, they start talking on the subway and they're like have different accents. And I'm like, like just like straight up, just like Dominican, and I'm like, whoa, I've never been introduced as much as I'd been introduced to culture and am about that and have always grown up in that. New York was a whole other world of culture that I just was like, whoa, this is like a whole other playing field. So then 9/11 happens, and that like that's its own thing of that was difficult. So that was what part about 9/11? I mean, there's a lot of parts about 9/11. I was there and I was on the subway when the first plane hit, and then I was so just doing my thing and trying to survive that when my mom called me, I got in the office and my mom called me and she said, "Are you okay?" Oh no, I was in the elevator and the one of the girls from the other floor was like, "Oh my God, all those people at the World Trade Center." And then I got in the office and then I talked to my mom and she's like, "Are you okay? The Twin Towers just got hit." That I didn't even know that the World Trade Center and the Twin Towers were the same thing, because I'm not a stupid person. I'm not a dumb person. I didn't do sightseeing. I didn't come to New York to sightsee. I came to New York to like work and figure out what I'm doing with my life. So I just like was just not aware of that. And sure enough, I became aware of that very quickly. And watching the towers fall from Midtown, because we were in a high rise, and getting on the balcony of the building. Yeah, that was a whole. Oh, I guess a better way to say this without like telling you my whole 9/11 experience. So in 2003, I actually ended up writing a show called Gas, and that's in parentheses, Gas. And it wasn't a one-woman show, but it was a show about one woman, which was me. And it was really, how I would describe it is it was essentially my college years, but all in poetry and song form. So it was really like if you were to flip through the pages of my journal or my my poetry book and it came to life. Because I had no segue dialogue. It literally just went from piece to piece to piece. But instead of me standing there and just like reciting you poetry, I just made each piece like come to life and tell this linear story of my. I never say that it's my 4 years of college, but walking you through my 4 years of college, from leaving class to finding my own way in New York to 9/11 happening, and then coming out of that and finding a community, but not saying any of that in words, or actually saying all of that in words, but all just in these forms of poems and song. And you're just literally just like watching me, it was a theater piece, but do these pieces coming to life, not narrated by anything else, but just the poetry and song itself. So that was called Gas, that I did in 2003 in an area of Brooklyn that was like, I wasn't never embarrassed, but I was like, damn, am I going to get people out here because it's hella far from Manhattan? It was in the cut. But now I go to New York and I'm like, this place is popping. Hello, gentrification. I'm like, this is where I did my show. Actually, I did my show 2 stops closer to the city than this area that I went to a show recently at. But yeah, so that's where Gas was born and then I ended up bringing Gasp back in 2011 in Leimert Park here in Los Angeles, but under a new name, Heartstorms, where I reconfigured it to this model of doing pieces like this into this other show. I mean, I can tell you more about it if you, but like it's a whole other thing. But that I did it a few times, but then I actually went on and did it, modeling that same model off of 2 other artists, because it gave way to be able to be told like that. It became my love letter to the open mic community. And hopefully I'll do more of those, but yeah.
Was Gas, so you went to New York, right? So we were talking about New York, and then the Twin Towers happened, 9/11 happened, and then we went into Gasp. Was Gasp like, you left LA, you're in New York to find yourself. Was Gasp the first form of returning to creativity again for you? You're finding yourself, right? We're in New York, we're finding ourselves. So you're working, and then all of a sudden, but creativity never left you. Was Gasp the birth of you going back to yourself again and the sprint it, or because we went into 9/11, did 9/11 help with that to push you? Because now this is what's happening in the world, and now Gasp. I'm just curious, like those.
No, I mean, it never stopped. I was always writing.
Got it.
I was always writing.
Okay.
And so, I mean, Gasp is excerpts from my life of the pieces that I was writing those days. I mean, from 99.
To that, though. I was just curious, because you stepped away from stuff, and now I found my voice.
No,
you cleared your
I
head
stepped away. No. I stepped away from an unhealthy acting class environment, and turn got kicked out of my own family. So then I had to, so then I fled to New York. So I never stepped away from
creating.
Like that just did that. But the kind of creator that I am, I'm not like, I didn't go to New York and like, I need to get an agent. I need to get out there and start doing, like, that's never, it's never been my way. Gotcha. That's just never been my way. It's been more about living life and then creating from that, living life and then creating from that, living life. I mean, that's even my book, which is later on the timeline, I know. So I won't talk about that, but like, I gotta really stay with Kuya P's timeline here, Tina.
Because he's like,
no, let's get back on track.
There's so much.
Yeah, I'm so invested.
We're not married to the timeline. We're interested in the journey and how things develop, where it all came from. Which you've been painting the picture for us, and I'm floored. It's amazing.
There was a time in New York, actually, one of the interns, she's like, "Oh yeah, isn't your brother? Don't you have these brothers?" I'm like, yeah. And she's like, "I thought so. I picked up this magazine for you. It's so cool. They're on the cover of this magazine." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And it was like Asian magazine I think it was Asian magazine or A magazine. I was like, "Oh, cool." And then I like flipped through it and read the interview, and it was so interesting because they had just came out with the debut. Mm-hmm. So they did this big coverage on them and this photo shoot, and in it they said that, I was in the debut too as well. I was the car girl in the debut. Yeah. I was thrown in there. But they said this thing because they were good friends with one of the other members of the cult at that time, who in there can't remember if he claimed it or one of the brothers claimed it. It's like, he's the 5th Basco. When she just like a blow to like, I was like, okay, wow. That's cool. Yeah, it was, I mean, and just to say this, like to your comments, Kuya P, about apologizing for having to bring up all this stuff. One, you can just stop apologizing, period, just across the board. But also, if you're asking me about my life, you have, then what else? What else am I going to talk about? Because you have to be the historian of your own narrative. And mine wasn't that I was Rufio and Hook, and I was this, and I was, and I'm okay with that. But then what was I doing? And if I was to be honest with you, I was doing all of this, and I was having struggles, and I was finding my feet. And so that has to come with like hard times. I mean, how else? No, everything's been fine. Oh, really? Everything's been fine. You're a single mom of two, and everything's just been beautiful. Yeah. Everything's just, I have this community, and you know what I mean? So like, of course it has to come with that counter story. We do things in this life out of necessity, and it doesn't always have to be out of necessity of trauma. No, it doesn't always have to be out of necessity of trauma, but it did come out of necessity of some sort of struggle or some sort of adversity that this needs to. The Fabulous Filipino Brothers is here out of necessity. Because it's not like, oh, we just appeared. We've been here. We've been living these lives. We've been Filipino. We've been in these houses. We've been having these conversations. We've been fucking with our siblings like this. We've been, trying to put off our parents on shit. We've been traveling back home to the motherland. We exist, damn it. Like, we exist. And not everybody's story is the same. And that's why we talk about the Fabulous Filipino Brothers. Like, it's not a monolith. This is not to be like the quintessential story of all of the Filipinos. No, it is absolutely not. That is no more true than you can say that, I don't know, pick any white movie or black movie. Love Jones speaks for all the black people. No, not true. Not true. Not true.
Yes. Woo! Yeah. Ah, man. So real. New York, back to LA. We're all over the place, but whatever. We've been there. We're touching upon all of this. I think I could do I could talk with you forever, Arianna, because like, yeah. But I think it's so important though. And I hope everybody, when they've watched this, like, this is real talk. We've got to go through this. You know what really touched me? Okay, I want to touch upon your Palms Up and the brilliance that is Palms Up, but how it started with letters to your unborn daughter, and then eventually becoming Palms Up Academy, which is so beautiful. And but just the concept to do that. You're a writer, you're a creative, so you know what? I've got some words for you, little one. You're not here yet, but I gotta put a few things in. And I actually have the tab open right now to order the book. By the way, I want to read this. So if you could tell me how that came to be, Arianna, if you don't mind.
Yes, I will tell you about Palms Up. I think Tina had something. Were you gonna say something?
That was
sorry, Tina.
I wanted to. That's perfect, because I was going to ask about how your art, like you're still creating this art. You've been through these times and still emerged as an artist, and you're living in New York and creating art. You eventually go back to LA, but how did your art influence you as a woman and then you as a mother? And I think Kuya P's question kind of ties into that, where to meet us there where we are.
Yeah. So I arrived back in Los Angeles officially in 2005. And so that brings me to about 25 years old. Or officially in 2006. So yeah, I'm definitely 25 at that time. But I think what should be mentioned during this time, in terms that's even like predates the book, is that it's a really interesting time. I won't go too much into it, but it was interesting that I arrived back, and this was interestingly enough, coincided the same time that the brothers woke up and decided to leave the class. So in 2006, actually, I was wintering here in 2005, and Christmas Day, I remember, and at the time I was like had blonde hair and all this other stuff going on, another world, and I just recently lost just that month a good friend of mine to one of the first cases of HPV. Before they really knew what HPV was, and I watched her die in New York, and it was quite a crazy experience for me, and a very deep loss for me, for someone who is like my contemporary and my age, and just like seeing her just deteriorate so quickly. So Christmas Day, my brothers show up at the house like ghosts. I was like, what are they doing here? What's happening right now? But we did it. My parents didn't know they were coming. We did it. We didn't know what was happening. We just like celebrated Christmas. And then January 2006, basically this incident happens where they had a family dinner, and I felt very slighted because I was like, oh wait, because Arianna is going to be handled later, right? Because I remember seeing my parents that night. I went to go pick up my dog. At the time I was already living in Long Beach or something, Long Beach. And I was like, oh, why are they so giddy? And I'm like, what's up? And they're like, oh, no, we can't tell her. Oh, no, we should tell her. No, we can't. I was like, what is wrong with you? What now? You have to tell me what's happening. Like, oh, we just got back. They finally left, and our dreams came true. And we just got back from dinner with them. We just had a family dinner, and we just got back from dinner. And I was like, wait, did you guys had a family dinner and I wasn't there? Yeesh. So you had this family dinner, and they're like, yes, but oh, what, are you upset? I'm like, yeah, I thought you worked through all this. And I was like, I have worked through all this, and that's why I'm leaving right now, because I need to work on myself right now. But I'm very happy for you, and that's awesome. And so that in itself, things, interestingly, as it has been happening in my life, the 9-month restriction, the 9 months of pregnancies twice, and there was another incident of a 9-month thing during the transition of this other situation that I was, the spaces that I was in between. But this was 9 months. So that started this 9 months before. So that was January. And our niece, Ella J. Basco, was born in September. And my sister-in-law was like, we cannot have this baby until we talk to Arianna and like actually like iron things out. I mean, we were doing things in between. Like there were like Mother's Day, birthdays, they performed with Snoop Dogg, come through. Like things were happening, but I was just expected to be a team player. And I was a team player, and I did, because I love my family. And it just was astounding to me that 7 years had passed, and I'm just like going to suck it up right now and just like be a team player. But like, this is interesting. But then we did finally have that conversation, which is a whole other, could be its own movie in itself. So I'm just trying to paint for you. So 2006, in terms of creativity, that is also during that time. Then me and my brothers are cool, and actually short, because that was September, October, I meet one of their good friends, who is now one of my very good friends, godmother of one of my kids. We start doing this thing. We basically do Tarred and Feathered. There's a longer story with Tarred and Feathered's history, but we basically start doing Tarred and Feathered, end up. So as far as like creativity in this time period, is like really just starting to produce events, and even having my brothers performing at events, doing bigger events, and kind of start becoming this behind the scenes holder of space and curating space, and like the vibe that I want, this like intersection of art and genre, and this gathering of all kinds of people and cultures together. So that was really what was going on then. And then I started working for and working with my girlfriend at the time, who was married with to John Frusciante, so started working with them, and she ended up doing a music project, and so then started touring, and I was in the band, and it's called Swahili Blonde, and then now we're touring a little bit, and we're doing that, which is where I actually meet the first, as I call him, sperm donor. Not even in a negative way, just like in a truthful way, because that's what had happened. The first sperm donor on the road, and that brings us, to around time of my book. So I was going through a lot during the time. I was pregnant. We had just finished Balak Bayan with the Bascos at ABS-CBN in 2011. So 2011, I'm sorry, 2012. 2012, I turned 31. But that was, and I say that because that was my golden year, because my birthday is March 31st. So, and right when and we shot the whole month of March in the Philippines for the Department of Tourism. The whole family, my parents, and we traveled all around to Davao, went to so many places, which is its own hilarious and tragic story in its own, because there's the stuff that made it to the TV. And then there's the stuff that didn't make it to the TV, and like things that we got in a huge fight in Boracay, and things exploded, and it was just a lot of things. Which again didn't make it to television. Obviously, wouldn't want that on television, but was definitely an interesting time for us. And then I get back, and the guy that I'm with at the time, essentially Aurora's conception was my birthday present that year, and then by her birthday, she was born December 24th. She was my Christmas present that year too, so it was quite the golden year for me. But with that came a slew of other things, because at the end of the day, we didn't end up together. There was a lot of things. We also lost another friend that year, very abruptly, to a hit and run. That was very close to our inner circle. That really set the stage for me to, just that was really the impetus. But there's always as I said, the apparent event and the actual event. So the apparent event is that I'm gonna kick you out of my house right now because you're wildly inappropriate, not understanding the weight of the situation, and you're making it about something else. But the actual event is like, you ain't with it, dog. Like, you haven't been with it. You don't. You need to go. So, but I say all that because at that time too, a good friend of mine from high school was just starting a publishing company, and he's like, Basco, I want to publish your book. And I said, well, that's really sweet, but I don't have a book to publish. So he's like, well, then write one. And I was like, oh, dang it, I'm gonna write a book. So so I started to kind of dabble into writing it, but I would, at the time on Facebook, I was writing these Facebook updates in my own way of respecting myself, but also not putting anyone on blast. So I was writing these dear kid or dear Rory. And I would say these things, sometimes about my body changing, sometimes about heritage and lineage, sometimes about the difficulty that I was having with the sperm donor at that time. But I'd never say that. I'd just dear Rory, sometimes when life gets difficult and happens, just in my own way of processing things. And anyways, he was starting to see a lot of these, and he called me back and he said, well, that's the book. That's the book right there. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I went back and I compiled the ones that I'd written, and I put them together. And then I came back to him and I said, oh, here's the book. And he's like, well, this is great. These are really great clips for life and for difficult times if you want to do a coffee table book. But I need more from you. So then I had to actually go back and kind of a lot of the things that we're talking about today, not entirely in its entirety, and it can never ever be in its entirety because life is longer than that, but is also covered in the book. But the book itself is much like the Fabulous Filipino Brothers. It is fiction. It is not, but it is very much inspired by nonfiction life and incidences, and I was able to flush out a lot of these stories and my truths and life with the book. So yeah, so that's the book, and how it affects in terms of what Tina, your question to that was just like parenting. Again, as this whole conversation trying to break me up into decades, it's like everything is everything. So as far as children, everything changes and not a lot changes.
Yeah.
What children do, they magnify who you already were. So like if you were already like, not organized, or I don't know, always late or whatever, like it's just going to magnify that. There's just going to be more things and reasons to be like, oh, well, now I had to get those shoes and I had to do the. But if you're always on, like, just all the little things about yourself, it just magnifies that, whatever it is that you lack or that you're good at, whatever. And then it's this process of looking at that, for me, at least my experience. And then the process of looking at it and being like, oh, well, yeah, just this is true. But also doesn't mean that now I can like look and adjust. And also with children, for me, because the art is just, for me, art is just, it's like decoding life for me. So my creations is just, it's like, it's helping me decode life. That's how I'm reflecting on it. That's how I'm figuring out these things that have happened to me, and these things that I feel in my body and my bones, and these things that I hear, and how I articulate it is through art. So in that too, my kids, when I'm like projects or whatever comes up now with Palms Up stuff, or organizations to work with, or interviews or whatever, or just people to fucks with, whatever it is, like whatever, having children for me too. And I think it also comes with age, is like, you just say yes and no a lot quicker. It's just like not a lot of muddling around, like, but I don't know. Oh, well, let me check this out. Like, no, it's just no. And it's just no. It's just, this is gonna be a hard pass. You're just gonna have to have a hard pass. Clearly don't have time. And I don't, and then it becomes this thing of like, because I'm a holder of space, and because I am really empathetic, and I do, when I'm present, I'm really there, and I'm really working with people. But then, it's about balance, and it's just like, I'm not responsible for anyone else's feelings. Like, I got to handle this, my kids, my life. I do these things, these creative things, this holding a space, this script, this act, all these things fulfill me, and it's important, but so do my children. And I have to be optimal. I have to be at my optimal to function and to like navigate through my day and stay on top of the endless to-do list that comes with living, period, but also having children, and then being in a huge family, and really learning. You're told that all your life, like learn how to prioritize, but you don't really, or I can't say that for everyone. For me, it doesn't really start becoming clear to me until these later years of my life, where I'm like, oh, that's what priority is. Actually, priority is, and I say it in one of my pieces that I end every night with, is like, you got, which is not original, by the way, because they say it to you on the plane all the time. You got to put your own oxygen mask on before you assist others to breathe. Period. Like, so if I'm not doing that for myself, in the balancing of work, and the balancing of play, and the balancing of nurturing my children, and playing with my children, and teaching my children, and doing the best that I can in contributing to the family structure, but also knowing when like the larger family at hand, well, this particular thing ain't about me, and I got to stay off of it, like that. They got to deal with that, and I got to deal with this, just finding all of those things, which happens not even about our entertainment family, like in every family, just learning your own boundaries, and how much you're investing into every relationship and everything that you do, and how much are you investing in yourself, and why are you doing certain things. And children, they have informed me of what is important to say yes to and no to. And at the end of the day, someone who I do like to take care of people's feelings and make sure that they're good, sometimes I have to go, no. And also, yeah, whatever your feelings are, I'm sorry that you're hurt, but like, it's not my responsibility. And I got to walk away.
Self-care.
Yo, real
And
talk.
that's the theme for 2022 is self-care.
Hell yeah. Hell
Oof.
yeah. Real talk. All right. Okay, so I've been looking at the time too, and I'm like, I hope we're good on time, Arianna, because everything is everything, and we're all over the place. So I kind of like have this kind of like one last segue, because I want to get to Fabulous Filipino Brothers, but like, there's so much more. I could chill and chat, and I want to buy you dinner when I head out to LA. If you ever come out here to DC.
Oh yeah.
You did say you're coming out here for hopefully part of the tour. I don't know if it's in the cards yet. But
oh yeah,
I may come down to Virginia Beach,
the date, but we are coming.
Yeah,
we are coming, but I can't. I'm not sure that.
Yeah,
but we're gonna be there like in the next week or so.
We're gonna work that out. We'll work that out. But what I want to get to before we close it out, because again, I could talk with you forever, and because I feel so much, you and I are like very much the same person, and I love that vibe in your soul and your energy. So. We talked about Palms Up, but the bridge, because you left New York, the getting back with the family, and then that will then take us to Fabulous Filipino Brothers, because you left, there's this animosity, you're back in LA. Can you talk about how that bridge happened to where you're now creating again to bring it to Fabulous Filipino Brothers, and tell sort of your personal family story, because that is sort of what Fabulous Filipino Brothers is a reflection of the family.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that's in Fab Filipino Brothers, but then there's a lot that's not, right?
Exactly.
That we don't touch on, of course, because it's one movie. So so if we go from 2012, as far as from my narrative and my perspective of it, when my daughter was born, and then Dante, I think it was like 2014 starts We on the 8th. So just like kind of tying. And then that's also when around that time, 2014, 2015, we start Our Mic, and then that runs till about 2018. And the fam in this time, I mean, I make another baby in 2015. Derek, then by the time I have Aurora, my first kid, he already has all of his kids. The DJ being the oldest, from a different thing, and then Ella, Deuce, and Emmy, and the family at this time, we're really at this place. I mean, I was in the band. We're bonding. We're creating things, but I'm really falling into my own space of so yeah, at this time, like in this time, 2012 to 2019, really, when we start shooting Fabulous Filipino Brothers, we're really, well, I can't speak for the rest of the brothers. I know for myself, I came out with my book. I'm starting to do these other productions. Like I did this whole series called A Story of Worth. And I never got to do it, and I don't think that I'll never do it. A lot of times, like the things that I do, I want to. So it doesn't have to be template based, but for example, Gas becomes Heartstorms. Heartstorms that I released in 2011, then did again 2011. It's a theater show. Then did again in 2017, and then again in 2018, and then again in 2019. But then I did it with two different artists. Heartstorms in its own, and as far as my creative process, as I'm holding space and doing all these other things and producing like multiple shows for the community and tons of other things, and directing other people's shows and curating them. Heartstorms is this story. Essentially, you come to the theater. Your experience as the audience should be this. And not that I need to dictate your experience, but this is what you're seeing. Oh, someone comes out and they're like, oh, Lady Basco's not ready yet. This is a show about an open mic. So this mic is open and the person leaves. So now the audience, whoever wants to come up on the mic and just go, because it is, it's an open mic. It's a show about an open mic. So we did that for a little bit, and then, okay, she's ready. And then I come out and I open the show as I do with this piece, and I talk about open mics, and it's almost like it's not a play. Like, well, we just came to have her run an open mic, and I start bringing up people to the stage. And I want to tell you about my homie Kuya P. Let me tell you about my homegirl Tina, and she comes out and she sings a song, she does a thing, and it's like, oh, sit on stage with me, like I need company. And then there's a point in the show when it's just like goes, much like you have when you're at a show or a movie, something triggers you, and it's like, it's cathartic. Like someone's talking about their mom's peach pie, and you're like, oh, my mama used to make me peach pie. It's that moment.
Yeah.
And then now you're in the pages of my journal, and these people that I brought up on stage become the cast members of this story. So like Gas, like I said, there's no narration. It's just piece after piece after piece telling you this story. It's telling you the story of my heart storm and what I had to endure through these pieces of my poetry. And then there's a device that brings us back out, and we're back at the space, and I close out the night. So you can see how this can be applied to another artist. And so I did have an opportunity to do that with two other artists, which was an amazing experience. And I'm sure I'll probably do more of them, because it just lends itself to that. Like, we could do this template with anyone. Like anyone can have their own heart storm and be surrounded by their community and have in that way. And it is very much my love letter to the open mic culture. So I was doing heart storms, and then I also produced and directed this filmed content, which is also could be applied to any artist too. And it's a series called a story of worth, and it's 5 pieces. And when you watch them all together, it's like suggests that it's 24 hours in a day, and kind of this woman's journey of her own self and her own beingness, even though it's 5 separate pieces showing 5 different things. But if you watch it all together, you're like, oh, I can see how that's like all one day, and how she comes to this kind of revelation in herself. So that's a story of worth. So I produced that and was launching that. And then our mic ended abruptly with We on the 8th due to other reasons. And then there was also this 9-month period of like, well, what are we going to do? And
Glimmer too. I just, when did Glimmer fit into that? Or are we getting to Glimmer?
Well, not yet. We're not. So the 9 months happened, and then it all happened pretty quickly in September, because then I talked to someone from SEEP, and they're like, no, start doing it here. Yeah, this sounds amazing. So I gave the community and the folks like literally like 2 weeks. I was like, well, all right, we're going to start back in 2 weeks. And actually my homie Dre Magics is Filipino.
Oh yeah. I've been in touch with him. He was supposed to be, we supposed to do the interview a couple weeks ago, but I had to reschedule. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having Dre on.
Amazing.
Yeah, Dre's awesome.
Dre Magics. We were having meetings along with my other right hand man, Magic MC, who about what to call it. And the reason for Palms Up going back is because I would end a lot of the letters on my Facebook page just like palms up. It was just like this whole philosophy behind it too. It is about letting go, that it's not always about the and as women too, especially, like we're used to just like giving. So it's like exhale, and we forget that the inhale is just as important as the exhale, and you can't just exhale all the time. So it's the same thing with letting go, and it is about putting your palms up literally and letting go, but also as you let go, it's also about receiving and understanding what receiving is. And stop saying I'm sorry all the time, and to be able to say, hey, you look nice, and for you to be able to say thank you without feeling the need to qualify that or be like, you look nice too. You can also just say receive and say thank you, because how do you expect to receive any of these greater and grander things that you want for yourself, for your family, for your culture, for everything, if you can't receive a simple thing like, hey, you look really nice today, without
Thank-
immediately feeling like you got to qualify it, right? So that's where Palms Up comes from as well. So then when the name came about, like, well, what are we going to call this new rendition of whatever? It was Dre actually that was like, what? Palms Up Academy. Palms Up Academy. I'm like, oh, I don't know, but okay. All right. So then so Palms Up Academy was born. And through Palms Up Academy, I knew that through my work from Tart and Feather, from Speakeasy, and then Our Mic, really separate, like doing these round twos, because our we ended at a time like our Mic, a year prior to that, we had a showcase, and we had 4 people from our community that all had to, it was not like a contest, but kind of like that was going to be put in this showcase. So it was for them, and then for it was Saul Williams, Dante Basco, Reshma Gahar, and I can't remember her other name, but I can't remember her name right now. But she works with Macklemore. Anyways, so then we literally just ran it like we run it. Like everybody's gonna, it's a lottery. Everyone's gonna do a piece. Everyone did a piece. And then we did round 2, and we ran everybody. So they all got to play together in these like inspired moments that nobody knows what's going to happen, because I don't even know what's going to happen, even though because I got to be like inspired by what's happening. You know, I got to be revealed like to what's going to take place. So that's the kind of work we were doing. But as I was coming into Palms Up Academy, I really was trying to be more intentional about, I mean, we could really have a whole other interview on just like the philosophy and of holding space and what that is. But
Yes.
I really wanted to be intentional about like, I'm still going to do a little bit of that. Like now I call it B-sides, like a little bit of B-sides, but I'm not going to run everybody through the list again, because I want this separate thing. I want that training to be separate. So then that Art Class for Creatives then became Art Class for Creatives 2. For the people who graduated Art Class for Creatives, because that was another thing that's like really important to me that I learned from, again, Everything is Everything. That class that we were in, the cult, was an ongoing thing. And I was like, oh my God, you can never get out of it. You're very, very trapped in it. And the open mic, I mean, you can come and go as you please. But like when I start doing classes and stuff, I'm like, no, I want there to be a beginning, middle, and end. Like, I don't want anyone to feel like, I want people to know that they can commit to this. And that's it. And we don't need to like own your life. I don't want to own anyone's life, you know? So, but the people who graduated did want more things. So I started an Art Class for Creatives 2, and through Art Class for Creatives 2, with those people, Glimmer was born out of a conversation, because it was 2019, and I believe it was like April, May. And I brought in an old script that I had written a decade earlier, really Latino-based, Latino-American-based. And it was about this band. Anyways, just brought it in for them to cold read, because even though, you know, there's poets, magicians, comedians, actors in this class, filmmakers, but even though they all do different things, everyone's going to have to be on camera at some point for an interview or music video or something, so that they should like be malleable. Like they should understand that. So I brought in some sides, and I brought in my own, because it was, you know, people of color, and it wasn't just like, you know, some white movie that they had to read, you know, just something for them to just get into and play. And we had Faye Hernandez, who is a trans non-binary. I kept casting them in the male role just because I was, you know, and they didn't take offense to that. But afterwards, at the talk back afterwards, just like thinking like, yeah, well, Faye was like, but what if I wanted to play Piper? And I was like, I don't know, maybe you did want to play Piper, but it's not that kind of movie, but also interesting. So I went home that night, and I actually wrote a whole script, actually just for them to cold read the next week. And but what became like this project to cold read became a very real thing very quickly, because a neighbor of ours, who's Radon Popovic, who's an acclaimed cinematographer, he was over just to pick up his dog from my brother's house, and my sister-in-law was like, what are you going to do a movie with our family? And he's like, when are you going to send me a script? And I was like, I have a script brought on. And he's like, well, you should have sent it to me already. And I remember because it was Father's Day, was like the next day, and I wasn't going to bother him on Father's Day. And also I was like, he's not serious, but he wrote me on Father's Day and he's like, where's the script? And I was like, oh, okay. So from that point, it became very real that I was going to make the short film. And then we got Rosario Dawson to come on board. Then she plays the mother in the movie, in the short film. And then we were shooting it come June or July. It was very quick. It was one day shoot, but then it just happened. And the script itself is Glimmer is about Javi and Elsa. And Javi, what you're seeing is Javi, what happened. Javi gets a call from their mother, who's played by Rosario Dawson, and their grandmother just passed away. And Javi and Elsa are both listening to the message, and they proceed to have this like argument, conversation about culture and multi-generation and grandma was an immigrant and how much she sacrificed for us. But then Javi's like, but bitch didn't care when I came out, and like how much of ourselves and is uniquely ours, and how much is because of our ancestors who sacrificed for us, and how much do we pay homage to that, and how much do we stand in our own truth. And it's kind of them having this conversation. But meanwhile, you're watching Javi. The first clips is Javi dressed up from the night before with a kimono on and all makeup down, and just like, and there with Elsa, who's also wearing a kimono and chilling. And we were talking about behavior before in acting. His behavior, his manner, like their behavior, they are getting dressed. They're getting dressed for work into cis male clothing the whole time. They're getting ready for work. Like, bitch, thank you, bitch, I don't have time for this. Like, I got to get ready for work, And then between them, you think, oh, well, Elsa is a roommate. Oh no, Elsa is a cousin. Elsa is the sister. And then at the end of the movie, you realize that Elsa is actually the woman that lives inside of Javi. That's Javi talking to themselves, and I mean, and it was a joy to make. And then another thing that we did as far as filmmaking, like there's some cuts at the beginning and there's some cuts at the end, but really the bulk of the whole thing really is a one take, like a play. Like it's a one take. This whole conversation is a one take, and following Javi and Elsa in the studio apartment room having this conversation, which was pretty difficult because it was in the middle of summer and Faye's like melting. Oh, I'm melting. We're all melting. Yeah. And there's like 4 of us in the room with the boom mic, and we're like, okay, let's do another take. And and if you mess up one time, like that's it, because that's just how I wrote. Like, no, it's gonna be a one take. We're gonna follow them. We're gonna follow them through this whole movement. So one of the greatest compliments I got on Glimmer itself, aside from Rosario loving it and even agreeing to do it and loving it, and then she just her professionalism and talent, she's just ridiculous. Like, she sent me a bunch of voice recordings, like 7 of them, and she's like, and let me know if none of those are okay, because I have more. Like, I'll give you more. And I was like, Ro, you gave me 7 totally different like readings of this thing. I'm like, that is enough. You didn't stop. Just stop it right now. So good. But the other one was the editor who ended up editing it. We went to a person of color editing house, Endless Smile Studios, but his assistant editor, who ended up doing it, is this white Republican, gun. Oh, sorry.
No worries. Oh. All right.
Shark.
Yeah.
I gotta go.
Okay.
No
worries. We can.
Is she coming back?
Yeah.
Just like, I'm
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah, I know. You don't have to. Yeah, if it's, I understand, homie. Yeah. Whew. This has been a beast one. It's gonna be a beast to edit too.
Oh, when she comes back, can we just be like, hey, we have like just one final question for you. We're definitely gonna have to have you come back.
Oh yeah.
And talk more about all the different projects, because like you were like, oh wait, we still gotta talk about Fabulous Filipino. I was like,
yeah, I know.
Where does Glimmer go into this? And I was like, oh my god, there's more.
Yeah, if you gotta go, you can go. Here she is.
Nope.
She's coming. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I just hate scam calls.
It's no worries.
And then just those, yeah. Anyways, the white Republican just said that he pulled me aside and he was just like, I don't know anything about this world at all, but I'm just really surprised how I'm feeling about this. And just that I just really think that it was like really clever, because also just like I just never understood that world of being transgender, and I'm not in that world. I mean, I don't hate that world. I just don't know that world. But this movie was really like working on this movie made me understand it a little bit more, because I have someone inside me too. It's not a woman. I mean, it's me, but like I get that. Like I get that.
Yeah.
Those conversations that we have with ourselves, which was cool.
So we went from Glimmer and writing your pieces, which to then, I'm not sure where we are in the timeline, because everything is everything now.
Yeah. No. Well, everything is everything. So then it's 2019. Yeah. We're done. We're wrapped. I'm in post for Glimmer. It's 2019.
Okay. Yeah.
I get a phone call from my brother. He's like, yo, nah. We, me and Dar, it's summer of 2019. We've been writing the script about the brothers, and we don't know, like you're gonna be narrating it. You're gonna be, and I think on Darian's side, when you talk to Dar at some point about it, like, because Dante, I don't think he thought it was necessary for me to narrate, and it was just going to be about the four brothers. And I think that it was Dar that was like, no, we need Art to narrate this, because then it's just like the four brothers, Yeah. I mean, which isn't terrible. You have movies like Goodfellas. You have these kinds of movies. So, but, you're putting Filipino in the name, like, you just can't just the woman. You just can't just have her as this not there, right? So
I want to insert real quick, if you don't mind, and this is probably a difficult one, but did this throw back to the past? You know what I'm saying? Because of the family separate, your issues, the issues, and then coming together again, and then now with this.
Yeah, yes, for sure. Well, how do I be like the truth is that, and it's not even his fault. I mean, it's just how it is. But Dante's shared experiences are different than my shared experiences. And his shared experience, and because he's the most in the foreground of the fam, especially of the brothers. So he's got, he's ushering in, he's making this happen. He's the captain of the ship. He's the director of the movie, even though he'll admit it himself. Like, obviously, he cheated a little, not cheated, but the word's not cheat. I don't know why we use that word. It's not cheating. He used his resources. He used the best actors that he knew, which is his brothers. He used, the best stories that he knew, which is our stories. He used like the crew that he used, he's smart. He's smart and resourceful. And you know, like his brothers would also, you know, all of us would keep it in check and quality check it a million times on set, post set, like everywhere. So Dante's narrative is different. I mean, for sure, like if you go through the history of Basco family things, I was in the Street Freaks too. I was Smurfette, but then they don't show that in the movie. But they just don't. He just generally doesn't talk about that. You know, the Fly Brown Dragons, that was them, which then became, well, there was like 1 through 6 or 7.5, which was their original name. Then Fly Brown Dragons, then Brown Boys, but boys, Brown Boys, and then what eventually became the Bosco Brothers, as far as a band name. And then now the movie's out and it's called The Fabulous Filipino Brothers. So yes, like, we're talking about like a lifetime of being, but just unseen, just like being unseen. And like my line in the movie about, oh, I didn't know you had a sister. Yeah, story of my life. I mean, yeah, that's my, like, that's what I say. Like, so for sure that brings up, I mean, it brings it up as much as it's, but it's already, I can't say like, oh, it's been completely worked through, but it's not like a novice idea or a novel feeling in my body. But yeah, for sure, there was like, here is this movie, and I just made it in because I wasn't going to be in. But then, and then it kind of grew into this thing where it was like, oh, well, he wrote that. He actually says that he wrote that last monologue, and that like he's surprised like no one touched it, because the when I came in, Dion came in, I punched everything. Like I had to, a lot of things shifted and changed, but that's something I didn't touch. Because I just didn't think that it needed to, but he's like, yeah, but he's like, that's still stuck in there as my voice. But I was like, yeah, it's as you're writing for my voice, but because that's true, but that's like literally something that I would say. So at least I know you're paying attention to some things. So actually, I mean, I might not, well, yeah, but anyways, so yeah, of course things come up there. It's just another indication of the patriarchy that is in a lot of families, especially Filipino families. So now I'm quoting the whole monologue. So for sure that comes up, but also in that, and then this kind of in the development of it, like, okay, well, now she's gonna break the fourth wall. Okay, well, now it only makes sense that she has to have her own title card. She has to have her own title card, you know? And then it's like the big reveal. So like, even when we're on tour, we have all these posters, right? And it is still called The Fabulous Filipino Brothers. So it's 4 bigger than life posters that we're putting out, if you see on our social media. But then of course there's not Doris, but of course there's not going to be Doris, because Doris is revealed, you know what I mean? So like, you can't reveal, like there can't just be a poster of Doris. Also, she's not a brother. The movie's called Fabulous Filipino Brothers.
Still can be, you know, but I think you're the big reveal though, in a way, you know, because you're the epic conclusion to show who are the real true backbone of a Filipino, you know, women. You all are so strong. We wouldn't be anything. But to me, and actually what's crazy, I think the sequel needs to be your story and the women of Filipino families. Like, you know,
we'll see. I mean, maybe it's a series, maybe it's a sequel,
to be determined and everything. But
well, I say this too. I had heard once you know, if the man is the head of the household, the woman is the neck.
Mm-hmm.
So
totally.
So yes, in some ways it irks me, and you know, and I didn't fight to be in this. It just happened that way. But when I heard the first reading of it, I did fight to be a writer on it, and to be, but I didn't fight in the way that like, oh, I want to be part of this more and want to fight. It was more in the lines of like, no. This is beautiful. You understand each other very well, and the nuances of brotherhood and brothers. I do too. I've been watching you guys my whole life. but the women cannot just be the frame for you to be like, we cannot just be the props in the thing. So going back in and writing, so it was more about fighting for the women and really bringing the women, punching up the women's voices, and then how that changes the scene and changes some of their dialogue and so on and so forth. So yeah, it was more about a crusade of that. Like, I get it. I get what you're saying. I get that it's going to be the Fabulous Filipino Brothers, but do you understand? Even on this tour, it's like, they just assumed that I wasn't going to go on tour, that I was only going to go to the Bay and Sacramento. And I was like, yeah, because whatever. They just assumed that, or they just assumed because I have kids and stuff. And I'm like, wait, that's my shit, and I'll handle that. But yes, I'm going on tour because one, of course, like to expand my own visibility and to just build some platforms and meet people to work on other projects and where this can go, to do business. Like, of course I want to go on tour for my own career and prospects and things like that, but also you should want me to go on tour too.
Yes,
because I'm a woman.
Yes.
You think that men are the only ones? I bet you more women are watching this than men are.
Yeah.
So you should also want me to be on tour, dude. Like, so yeah, I have my bouts with it. But I also know, man, I mean, this comes up in other conversations that just wouldn't be, it's the same, but different, like a harmony, but also like wouldn't be appropriate for this interview in another context of my life. So
I appreciate keeping it 100 though, like real talk.
Yeah.
Like, because I got love for you. I got love for the brothers. I've said it 1,000 times and I'll keep saying it. I love y'all, and this is so important. But but my wife and I talked about this too after we watched it, because she loved it, and especially how you kill it at the end with I just had statement to me, which to me then should translate into the next generation in the female story for the part 2. But I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked, and I know
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Kuya P, you didn't spoil it for me. Like, you told me that Arianna was the narrator, and I was like, oh, that's so cool, because like she's part of that. And then for you to come in at the end, I was like, oh, you didn't spoil the movie for me. Like, you told me that Arianna was the narrator, but you didn't spoil it for me that you had come in at the end. And when that happened, I was like, oh yes, they do have a sister.
it needed
I
that.
thought that was really cool.
The film needed that, because I've lived in a predominantly female environment, family, and where the women rule and run everything, and it needed that punch. I'm sorry, because it was so dominant with the.
Yeah, I mean, it could have gone either way, and I think even if I wasn't in it, I think that who knows? I think it would have just been as successful, just because my brothers are brilliant, and I think that they're brilliant actors, and just the knowingness of this material, and really taking their job seriously, but knowing just the nuance of just being a studied, trained actor and actress. I mean, but to carry these vignettes, because on page, it can look a little ludicrous, like some of the things that the antics that are going on, and it does really take a seasoned actor who can really pull it off, and to get the audience to go into belief in all that. And it takes, I mean, we put everything that we had into that movie. Of course, there's always more to give, and where there's going to be other projects. But like, even I was just talking to my friend who saw it yesterday, like the immediacy of the family, the one take and meeting, and the narration of like, what is a Filipino, and talking about that, okay, we're Filipino, and then going into this family scene that's like everybody family America scene, but these ones are Filipino, talking about pandesal and samadas. But even before then, so those are all things, but then even before then, we're talking about my mom joyously working on our photo albums years and years and years and recording everything. So like immediately you're watching in the credits a family, a real family. This isn't botched up. Like this is like real home videos, real pictures. My mom kept everything, a library of these things. So immediately drawing in the audience of like, oh yeah, they're okay, Philippine, they're Asian, but we're watching a family. Like this is gonna be that right now, right? So all these elements are at play, and because of that, because we're telling this story, it's just one version of these stories that we're telling, and we all agreed to be on it, and I'm like overjoyed to be on it, and appreciate so much being on it. So when I came onto the project, as especially a writer, it's servicing that. It's servicing the story that's at hand, the fabulous Filipino brothers, and how are we going to pull off this thing without women getting pissed that, oh, all the women are doing in the back are being extras and serving the men. How, you know, what are like finding those pieces of the puzzle and having it make sense, and making it supporting the film. I mean, that's what you do when you're on a project. Now there's like personal feelings of like, oh, well, I wasn't included in these other ways or whatever it is. But also that all doesn't even, that's the work. That's all the other part of this interview. 3/4 of this whole interview. And not this one, like, is like, that's me doing my own work in my own time, and the things that I'm working on and reflecting on, and the kind of artist that I am and who I am, and knowing my name when I wake up in the morning, and knowing my people, and knowing that people change throughout the years, and as you evolve, and finding all these truths and figuring out, you know, my narrative and how I want that to go, and whatever I'm doing, and finding my strength and being a single mom, and all of the things that I've had to overcome. That's all that work. And then you're met with this opportunity or this project. And I don't even care if it wasn't even the fabulous Philippines, it's whatever it is, that shit needs to, like, it doesn't go away. It's not that it goes away, is that you take all of the fuel from that and you put it into here. And you put it into here, but not in a reactive way, not in a way that's like, I'm a mess. No, like as a way that says like, this is who I am, and I've earned to be this. I am owning myself, and I deserve to be here, and this is who I am, and this is what I'm bringing to the table. Because I went through all of this, I can handle whatever's thrown at me at this moment, and I can multitask or whatever the heck it is. Because there's business, and then there's a shit that you got to take care of on your own, and that doesn't mean that that's not all present. It's present because you took care of it. It's present in a different way. Do you know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be present. Like, I run that shit. That shit doesn't run me. I run that shit because I've been working on it, all these years and all these things. And I don't, and when that happens, there's like no need to like, it sucks. And that's the truth of it in a way, but not in a way, because that's the story that needed to be told. But in a personal way, it sucks that that's still that's still the narrative of, you know, my brother or whatever. But at the same time, like, and that's his reality. But what is mine? And then, like, and what is mine? And I'm not doing this all to spite anybody. Nothing is being done to spite. And if things are done to spite me, well, I don't know what to say to that. That's not in my control. All I can do is just bring what I can bring to the table. And no matter what anybody else says or sees, do I know my name when I wake up in the morning? And do I know my people when I go to bed? You know, that's all I can make sure for myself. Right. Does that make sense? So of course there's personal feelings that are attached to that. But then again, it's like, and there's other stories to tell. Yeah. There's other places to do. There's other things to pour my energy in to, and that energy specifically, right? That, like, taking that energy that I feel that I'm not going to like explode on I don't know, this interview or whatever, or do that, but like take that energy and put it into this other project that I'm working on. That might not even have to do with any of that. Like, that just has to do with You know, just doing it, just doing what I want to do. There was this moment that after I left class, the cult, there was a while there that a few other people, many people left after I left. And a few of them also moved to New York. And we would meet every week at this diner. And we would sit and we would talk about class. And at the time, it was really cathartic and important to do. But then after a couple months, like I had to stop doing that. And I told my boyfriend at the time, like, I can't continue to do that, because now it's like, well, why did I leave class? Why did I leave? For freedom, so that I could become something else, so that I could evolve. But if I keep tying myself to these memories and these incidences and dissecting them every week and talking about what a ridiculous place this was, then I'm just like continuing to harbor all of those resentments. And yeah, there's one thing to like working through that, but then there's another thing of just like sitting there and bitching about it. And then it just becomes that, where really I left so that I could be free, so that I could do, so what did I want to do with my time if I wasn't beholden to that? So I feel that same way with like the Fabulous Filipino Brothers or whatever, that, you know, whatever narrative that's being carved out or people assume that's carved out or what, I don't even, it's like, well, I can be terribly upset about that, which I can talk to my therapist about or whatever and deal with it on my own terms publicly and all this stuff. But it's like, that's so dumb. Or I can just make another project. I could just put all that energy in doing the Fabulous Filipino Sister or a series or another project that me and my other brothers can, or something that me and Dante is going to work out in the future, or I don't even know what the future holds. But that's so what happens when we just if we sat there and bitched about everything that we didn't get in our lives, and like our deck of cards is just, it sucks that I have 1 year, I have this, I'm only this, and I'm only that. As a culture, I'm Filipina, I'm brown, they never see me, then we would have never lasted in this business for the last 3 decades. Then Fabulous Filipino Brothers would have never happened. It's not because we just sat around crying on ourselves like, nobody sees us over here. You're like, no, dog, get up and make something. Get, stand up, palms up, let's go. I can't, and it doesn't mean that I'm not trying to be an asshole. Like, I'm not saying that there's no place for vulnerability and we can't make space for that. But that's why I run a mic. That's why I go to my own therapy sessions. That's why I have my own, like, that's for me personally. I don't know what it is for other people. You know what I mean? That's why I hold space, so that I can flush those things, so that there are those times when I can be vulnerable, when I can witness other people's vulnerability in those moments. But when it's time to make shit happen, get up, stop bitching, stop crying. Because you know what? It's hard for everybody. It's hard for everybody.
Real.
Ooh, yeah.
Real talk. Arianna, this has got to be one of the dopest and most realest ShoPowShos we've had. And one of the probably the longest ShoPowShos.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I don't know. We're just vibing.
And I love it. And I'm so honored.
Edit down.
No worries. You know what? I'll probably clean it up a little bit, but I'm just so honored to really, honestly, you know, to keep it 100, to keep it real, and to share and open, and you giving us this space, like you give space for people to just, you know. And this is probably with, again, I can't say enough, this is probably one of the most realist ShoPowShos we had, but I'm so thankful. And Arianna, I can't wait to see, you know, we've encapsulated, you know, a bit, you know, of your life. And but we're all still on this journey though, right? You got, you know, we came off of Filipino Brothers. I'm now so honored to have this, and then hopefully we can continue this relationship, and I continue to show love and light as you build on this journey that you're doing. And I want to give you that love and light as you're doing this. I'm starting to stumble over my words. I'm gonna clean it back up. I'm gonna bring it back. But but yeah, no, this is
Patrick.
It's fucking life, yo. You know, we are living life, and it's ugly, it's pretty, it's beautiful, but it's just what it is. And you've illustrated that, and I'm so thankful. Let me throw it to Tina to close us out with the last question.
Yes, our final question, because we are the nerds rule the world, and we're all nerds, we always end with our nerd check. And don't worry, it's not a pop quiz or anything like that. But everyone has that one thing that they're super nerdy about. So what is something that you're either currently super into or like super nerdy about, or something that you can like give a whole TED talk on?
Oh my God, a whole TED talk? I don't know about a whole TED talk.
A 20-minute TED talk on.
Not a 3-hour TED talk on.
All right. Well, okay. All right. Let me see. I would say that, because it's just spur of the moment. You know, I always talk about like, well, no, I don't always talk. I can't keep up with like a lot of shows because it's a lot of commitment. And I know there's a lot of shows that I should be watching as an artist, as an actress, as a holder of space. Like, you should be studying that, you should be watching this. And it's like, you say that, but it's not like watching one movie. When you commit to a show, like Game of Thrones, like, oh, you didn't watch that. It's like, but it's like hours and hours of my life, because it's a universe, which I think is amazing, but I just don't have time for it. So, but the truth is, like, at the end of the night, and I know I have some time at the end of the night after having 2 kids and like doing the day and all the things that we have to do, but I just don't even want to think. So what I actually watch at night, can't believe I'm saying this. It is terrible. Well, it's a cross between these 4 shows, because they're all the same, but different, but the same. And I may or may not have seen probably all of them in their entireties. Castle, Person of Interest, The Mentalist, and Elementary.
Nice.
They're just easy to watch, and they're all the same. They're all like, someone gets murdered. I'm not even into horror or anything. I'm not into like those murders, but it's just whatever. It's just easy. And then I get into it, and then it's easy to fall asleep to. And yeah, I mean, I could probably tell you, yeah, everything that has happened to Kate Beckett and Richard Castle. It's so stupid, but I can, because I watch them, and that's my way of like, all right, goodbye. I don't have to think right now, and I could just go to sleep.
I feel like I would listen to that TED talk. It would be like, Elementary, The Mentalist, Castle, and how they're all the same. A TED talk.
And Person of Interest. Don't forget Person of Interest. Yeah, Person of Interest. And I think this came from like my dad, because he watches these shows, and I got on a little stint with one of my exes watching Columbo. So like, you know, this always just like these little short hour or so long things, and just kind of get into them. Hey. Ew, terrible. I told you that.
Oh, it could have been like Family Guy or something.
Hey, nothing's wrong with Family Guy.
I'm just saying, it could have been
those things I've never got on, like Family Guy or The Simpsons. Like, it's just like never just at Parks and Rec. I know it's like common references. It's just, I've just never been into. I mean, I was barely into any of those other things either. But then my dad got me on it, and then it just became my thing at nighttime.
Hey,
just watch it.
Oh my gosh, Arianna, thank you. Oh man.
All right, Arianna. Again, this was truly a pleasure, and I'm so honored and thankful that you shared and bared everything. And but yeah, when you continue on your journey, I would love to have you come back, give us that info, and give you love and light, and help celebrate it and promote it and share. But really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Palms up.
Palms up. You shine, I shine. Let's go.
Yes, I love it. There we go, y'all. Arianna Basco, Lady Basco in the house. All right.
Hey, it's Arianna Lady Basco, and I am on the ShoPowSho. We talked about all the things in all the decades. Tune in. Arianna Lady Basco here. What does my Filipino heritage mean to me? It's inherent. So it is everything. It is everything, and it is all things, because it is in me and through me and emanates out of me. And I was born into it. So it's togetherness, it's food, it's karaoke parties, it's poker, it's playing poker and then getting up in the middle of it because that song came on and you just got to do some cha-cha. It's singing along to that song. It's loud noises and talking over each other and arguing about the directions to the best place to get to this place, and everybody's right but everybody's wrong. Yeah, it's everything. It's life, because it's the skin that I'm in. It's the ancestors that I came from, and it completely informs the way in which I have to navigate this artist industry, not even industry, but even just my artist narrative. It totally informs how I move in this world. So yeah, and it's the culture of Basco.